Welcome to class PM. The next lesson we are going to learn is about soil. We see soil everywhere, right? You find soil everywhere in your school playground, at your house, and in your neighbor's place, in your garden, a place where there is a construction going on, right? We know that soil is one of the most important natural resources, and it also supports the growth of plants by fixing the roots firmly into the soil, at the same time providing nutrients and water required for the growth. And not only it will help the plants to grow, it is also a home or a dwelling for many organisms. And the soil which is present, it will also help us in agriculture, right? We all know that if there is no soil, there is no process of agriculture would have taken place. And if there is no agriculture, definitely there is no food for any of the living organisms, like it could be either animals or human beings. So this agriculture is providing us with food, shelter and clothing for all of us. Now, by listening to all these things, what do you feel? Soil is an inseparable part of our life. Don't you think so? Can we separate out soil from our life? No, we cannot separate out soil from our life. There is no life without soil. And see, whenever there is a first rain, this earthy fragrance which comes will definitely make you feel fresh and refreshing. See, when it is a hot sunny day and suddenly if it rains, you can feel that earthy fragrance, right? Which will give you a pleasant smell, and you feel like refreshed, right? Let me tell you an activity. See, do we have the same type of plants and animals, or do we have all the time plants and animals found in the soil? To know this, let us do a small activity. You can do this at your home. Take different types of soil from different sources. Say like collect soil from your garden and collect soil from your playground, collect soil from the place where there is a construction going on, and try to find out the organisms which are living in the soil. You usually see that from the garden. When you collect soil, you find different small creatures living in it. When you collect it from your playground, you may find small wrappers of chocolates, and then you may not find plants, obviously. You may find small wrappers of chocolates or polythene which has been thrown by the people. Now, when we talk about this polythene and wrappers, I just wanted to tell you that in previous lessons also, we almost many a times discussed that usage of polythene needs to be banned. Why? Because this polythene covers or polythene bags which are being thrown into the soil will pollute the soil. That is the reason there is a high demand for a ban of polythene covers. At the same time, you see that not only this polythene covers, there are various other things which will also pollute the soil. Like farmers use pesticides or farmers use fertilizers, and the waste which are produced from the factories, all these are being dumped into the soil or released into the soil. So the excessive release of these substances will make the soil toxic. Toxic in the sense poisonous. In the same time, it will also lose its fertility. It will also lose its fertility due to continuous deposition of chemicals and waste onto the soil. So that is the reason we need to be very careful before we send the waste or chemicals onto the soil. Now, how do we have to be careful? Like the plants in the sense, not the plants which are living organisms, the industries which are using the raw materials and producing waste after the processing of the product, they have to release the waste into the soil by treating them with chemicals, so that the toxicity of these waste which has been released will get reduced, so that they don't harm the soil. Now you might have understood. So every industry, before it releases the waste products into the soil, they treat it with different chemicals so that the toxicity which is present is reduced, so that the soil will be safe. So this is how you can see that the soil can be preserved or protected or conserved. Now when we talk about soil, now there comes a question. Like, how is the soil formed? Do any one of you have any idea, or is there any date which is mentioned in any of your notebook that this was a particular day or particular year or particular century when the soil was formed? No, there is no particular day or date which is mentioned in any of your books. Neither I know nor you know, right? We have been studying that since ages, the soil is formed by weathering of rocks. Now, what do you mean by weathering of rock? Soil formation takes place due to weathering of rocks. Now, there comes a question. What do you mean by weathering of rocks? So, this weathering of rocks is the surface of the rocks are being affected or eaten away by the action of components like wind, water, heat. wind, water and heat. That means the sunlight, the air and the water, they slowly break down the rock into pieces, and these rock gradually turn into soil. So this process of rock converting into soil is said to be weathering of rocks. So wind, water, climate, all these are the components which will help in process of soil formation, the process of soil formation. So we have seen that the soil formation takes place due to the weathering of rocks. When we talk about weathering of rocks, the weathering of rocks is caused due to abiotic factors like wind, water and heat and the climatic conditions over a place. Right. So what do? Gradually, this by action of these abiotic factors, the surface of the rock is broken down into pieces, and these slowly develop into, or these slowly form into a soil. So this is how the soil is formed by weathering of rocks, and the nature of the soil depends upon the type of the rock being withered or broken off. So you can see that after the rock is been withered or weathered, like when the soil is formed, you see different natural vegetation growing in such place, or natural vegetation growing in that particular soil. Now when we talk about this soil, we need to know like what does soil contain. Now how do you know what are the things which are present in the soil? Can we see them? Like you may see few small insects which are present in the soil, but do you know what are the other things which are present in the soil? To know this, we need to know one particular thing, that is soil profile. When you talk about the soil profile, you will be able to understand what are the different substances or what are the different things which are present in the soil, or what are the different things which make up the soil. So to do the soil profile or to know the soil profile, let us do a small activity. Take a glass tumbler, fill 3/4 of the glass tumbler with water. Okay, fill 3/4 of the glass tumbler with water. After filling this glass tumbler with water, take a small soil lump, okay, lump of soil. Take a small lump of soil, and then what you have to do, you have to powder it and then add it into the tumbler into which you have taken water. Add it into the tumbler into which you have taken water. Now after adding the soil, stir it properly using a stick or a stirrer. Stir it properly using a stick or a stirrer. When you stir it continuously, all the particles which are present in the soil get mixed up uniformly, right? Now leave this tumbler without disturbing for more than half an hour. After half an hour or 45 minutes, when you go back to the tumbler to see the condition of the tumbler, what do you observe? You observe that there are various layers of soil formed, or you can see the distinct layers of the soil formed. As I've told you, the soil is a dwelling for many organisms. As all these organisms, like dead organisms and dead plants and rotten plants or whatever are present, they float. Okay, I assume that these are the dead rotten surface which float on the topmost layer. As they are light, the dead parts are light. As they are light, they float on the surface of the water, and this is said to be humus. And what is it called? This is said to be humus. The dead plants and animals and dry leaves and few small insects which die, they float on the topmost layer, and that is said to be the humus. And then the next layer you find water, and then you see that there are different layers which are formed. You see that the next layer which is present, it has particles which are, you see, as if there is a mud inside this layer. You can see a soft soil which is present, that is nothing but your clay. That is nothing but your clay. And then when you look at the next layer, you see that the particles seem to be loosely arranged. Okay, just like as if they have spaces between them. You can see there are particles which are arranged loosely. They are not as close as they are in the clay. So this is nothing but your sand, and the last bed or the last part, you see that the big pebbles or the stones which are present, they settle down as gravel. When you do this activity, so you know the soil profile, you will come to know what are the different things which are present in the soil. I'll repeat once again. To know the different components or to know the profile of the soil, you need to take a small tumbler, fill 3/4 of the tumbler with water, add a soil lump to it. Okay, add a soil lump to it, stir it properly until the soil gets dissolved, and leave this apparatus undisturbed. And when you leave this apparatus undisturbed for more than 30 minutes and for 30 to 45 minutes, you see that there are distinct layers formed in the glass tumbler. And these distinct layers will tell us the profile of the soil or the various layers which are present in the soil. So the topmost layer consists of the dead rotten parts of plants and other small insects and animals, not huge animals, small insects, okay, and which is said to be humus, and just below the humus you will find the water surface, and below that the layer is made up of particles of soil which are closely packed, and they seem to be soft mud, and that is nothing but the clay, and just below this you can find the fine granules of sand, okay, fine granules of soil which have specific grains, and there is a air space present between them, and this specific soil is said to be sand. The specific soil is said to be sand, and just below the sand, as the heavier particles, you all know the heavier objects settle down at the bottom, the gravel, the small pebbles which are present, that is pebbles means small stones, the small pebbles which are present in the soil get dissolved or settle down at the bottom of the soil, which is said to be the gravel of the soil, So this is how we have seen the distinct layers which are formed by the activity. By now you might have known a vertical section through different layers of the soil is said to be soil profile. So this is how you will know the distinct layers of the soil present. See, we have seen the different layers of the soil through the soil profile, and when we talk about these different layers, you see that each layer differs in its texture, chemical composition, color, and these layers which differ are said to be horizons. And when you specially look at different horizons present in the soil, when we talk about the top soil which is present, you may not see any distinct features in the top soil, but you will, when you look at the top soil, you will also not find the different layers which are present inside the soil. Only when you dig the soil, you can see the other layers which are present in the soil. And this can be seen when you are digging a well. You are going to construct a house, when you try to dig out for the foundation. When you dig the soil for the foundation, you can see the different horizons of the soil. When we talk about the different horizons, now let us see the uppermost horizon or the uppermost layer of the soil which is present is said to be a horizon. It is said to be a horizon, and this a horizon is rich in humus and minerals, and it provides the required nutrients and water which is required for the growth of the plants. At the same time, the soil which is present in the A horizon is soft, porous, and it has a capacity to retain water. At the same time, it also provides shelter for many animals like small mice, rodents, moles, right? So this A horizon is also known as topsoil. It is also known as topsoil. And when you go down to the next layer of the soil, that is B horizon, which is comparatively harder, where the particles are compactly arranged in the B horizon, as that of topsoil. But you see that B horizon has more amount of minerals and less amount of humus. That means the humus level is little lower compared to the topsoil, but the amount of minerals which are present are high. At the same time, this B horizon is generally harder. And when you come down to the next layer of the soil, which is said to be C horizon, and you see there is a difference. See, I did not show you the compact arrangement of B horizon, but the particles in the B horizon are closely packed and it is a little darker, right? And when you talk about the C horizon, you can see that the arrangement of soil, you can see the soil is present in form of lumps of rocks, and cracks are seen in between these rocks and crevices. You can see that there are lumps of rocks seen in the next layer. So as you dig the topsoil, you will find the subsoil, that is also called as B horizon. And when you dig the B horizon deeper, you find there are lumps of rocks which come in. See, when you dig soil to plant some plant, to certain level you may not find any rock, but when you go deep into the soil, you find that when you're hitting with a spade, there is some rock which comes in between, right? So that is nothing but your C horizon. The C horizon is made up of lumps of rocks and there are cracks between these rocks. And below the C horizon you have your bedrock, which is very hard layer, and it is very difficult to dig it with spade. So this is how you can give the different layers of soil profile as horizons. And the topmost soil or the top soil is considered to be rich in humus, and this humus along with the organic matter will provide nutrients which are required for the growth of vegetation. And when there is proper vegetation, you will have food for all the organisms living. Yes, so this is how you can give the soil profile and different layers of the soil.